The letter arrived on a Tuesday, landing like a grenade in my perfectly ordered life. I almost missed it, buried between bills and junk mail, but my grandmother's lawyer's firm name caught my eye. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope, standing in my kitchen where I'd shared countless cups of tea with Gran before she passed. My name is Laurel, and until that moment, I thought I'd process my grandmother's death as well as any doctor could. Being an oncologist, I'm familiar with loss. But nothing prepared me for what that letter contained. Dear Dr. Whitaker, it began formally. In accordance with your grandmother's final wishes, we are to deliver the enclosed key and instructions to you exactly 6 months after her passing. A small brass key fell into my palm as I unfolded the letter. My throat tightened. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to Gran's antique writing desk, the one piece of furniture she never let anyone touch. The contents of the locked drawer, the letter continued, include your grandmother's personal diary and several documents she believed you should see. She was explicit that these materials be reviewed by you alone. My phone buzzed. Mother's name flashed across the screen. Marjorie Whitaker. 20 years of minimal contact, and suddenly she was calling daily since Gran's death. I let it go to voicemail, just like I had every other time. Laurel, honey. Her message played later as I poured a generous glass of wine. Clyde and I were thinking about visiting next weekend. There are some things we need to discuss about your grandmother's estate. I deleted the message before it finished. Classic Marjorie, absent for most of my life until money entered the equation. The same woman who left me with Gran when I was 12, running off with Clyde Harrington to start a new family, one without the burden of a preteen daughter. The key felt heavy in my pocket as I drove to Gran's house, my house now, though I hadn't changed a thing since the funeral. The porch light still burned, just as she'd always kept it. For strays, she used to say, both the four-legged and two-legged kind. Inside, everything remained exactly as she'd left it. The writing desk stood in its corner of the study, dark mahogany gleaming in the afternoon light. I approached it slowly, running my fingers along its smooth surface, remembering how Gran would shoo me away whenever she caught me trying to peek inside. The key slid in perfectly. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age, and beneath it, a stack of letters bound with faded ribbon. My hands shook as I lifted out the journal, Gran's familiar handwriting flowing across its pages. The first entry was dated 20 years ago, the day after my mother left. My dearest Laurel, it began, if you're reading this, I'm no longer here to protect you from the truth. There are things you need to know about your mother's departure, things I've kept hidden to spare you pain. But you're stronger now, and it's time you understood the real reason Marjorie left that day. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my half-sister Ruby's name on the screen. Sweet, innocent Ruby, who'd tried so hard over the years to bridge the gap between our broken family halves. I hesitated, then declined the call. Whatever secrets this journal held, whatever truths Gran had kept hidden, they could change everything. The carefully constructed walls I'd built around my heart, the professional distance I'd maintained from my mother's new family, all of it might crumble once I turned these pages. I poured another glass of wine and settled into Gran's favorite reading chair. Outside, storm clouds gathered, casting the study in shadows. Perfect weather for unearthing family secrets. Taking a deep breath, I began to read. Gran's diary entry from that night hit me like a punch to the gut. I had to set it down, my hands trembling as I paced the study. The storm outside had picked up, rain pelting against the windows like accusations. Your mother came to me that morning, Gran had written, desperate and afraid. She said Clyde had given her an ultimatum, leave with him that day, or he'd ensure she never saw a penny of his family's money again. But there was more to it than that. Something darker that made her hands shake as she spoke. The entry ended there, the next page torn out. Classic Gran, leaving breadcrumbs instead of answers. I was about to close the diary when something slipped from between its pages, a photograph I'd never seen before. My mother, much younger, holding me as a baby. But it was her expression that caught me off guard. She was looking at me with such raw love it made my chest ache. The doorbell rang, startling me so badly I dropped the photo. Through the rain-streaked window, I caught a glimpse of Ruby's red umbrella. "I know you're in there," she called out, her voice muffled by the storm. "Your car's outside, Laurel. Please, we need to talk." I considered pretending I wasn't home, but Ruby had inherited Gran's persistence. She'd camp out all night if she had to. "You look terrible," she said when I opened the door. She brushed past me, shaking water from her coat. "Have you been crying?" "I don't cry," I said automatically, but my reflection in the hallway mirror betrayed me. "What are you doing here, Ruby?" "Dad's planning something." She twisted her hands together, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "He's been making calls, meeting with lawyers. I overheard him tell Mom that he's found a way to contest Gran's will." The diary suddenly felt like it was burning a hole through the desk drawer. "He can't. The will is ironclad. There's something else." Ruby lowered her voice, glancing around as if Clyde might materialize from the shadows. "He's got papers, old ones, from before Mom married him." I couldn't see what they were, but a crash from upstairs cut her off. We both froze, staring at the ceiling. "I thought you said you were here alone," Ruby whispered. I was already moving toward the stairs, grabbing Gran's old tennis racket from the umbrella stand, the closest thing to a weapon within reach. Ruby followed close behind, her phone's flashlight beam bouncing off the walls. The noise had come from Gran's bedroom. The door stood slightly ajar, though I distinctly remembered closing it earlier. Inside, the window was open, curtains billowing in the wind, rain soaking into the carpet. And there, silhouetted against the lightning, was a figure hunched over Gran's dresser, rifling through the drawers. "Stop right there," I commanded, wielding the tennis racket like a sword. The figure straightened slowly, turning to face us. In the next flash of lightning, I recognized the sharp features and perfectly styled hair, even after all these years. "Hello, Laurel," said Aunt Opal, clutching a stack of papers to her chest. "I was hoping to avoid this particular family reunion. What are you doing here?" My voice shook with anger. "How did you get in?" "Your grandmother gave me a key years ago." Opal's smile was razor-thin. She knew someone would need to clean up after she was gone. "Some things are better left buried, dear. For everyone's sake." Behind me, Ruby gasped. "Those are the same kind of papers Dad has." Opal's expression flickered. "So Clyde found his copy. I should have known he wouldn't let this go." She straightened her spine, every inch the proper lady she'd always pretended to be. "We need to talk, Laurel, about what really happened the day your mother left." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the papers in Opal's hands. In that brief moment, I caught a glimpse of what looked like a contract, my mother's signature bold at the bottom. The truth, it seemed, was about to get a lot more complicated. The contract in Aunt Opal's hands was dated exactly 1 week before my mother left. I stared at it through burning eyes as we sat in Gran's kitchen, the storm still raging outside. Ruby had made coffee none of us were drinking. "It's a custody agreement," Opal said, sliding the papers across the table. "Your mother signed away her parental rights. Not because of Clyde's ultimatum, but because of something else entirely." My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I read. Legal jargon filled the pages, but one paragraph stood out. "In exchange for maintaining silence regarding the events of March 15, 1999, Marjorie Whittaker agrees to." "What happened on March 15th? I demanded. Opal's face tightened. "That's not my story to tell." "But your mother didn't abandon you for money, Laurel. She left to protect you." Ruby leaned forward, her coffee forgotten. "Protect her from what?" Before Opal could answer, my phone buzzed. Marjorie's name flashed on the screen again, but this time, there was a text. "Clyde knows about the contract. He's coming for the house. Don't let him in." As if on cue, headlights swept across the kitchen windows. A car door slammed. "He followed me," Ruby whispered, face pale. "I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful." Opal moved faster than I'd ever seen her move, gathering the papers. "Get these somewhere safe. Now." Heavy footsteps on the porch, then pounding on the door. "Laurel." Clyde's voice boomed through the house. Open up. We need to discuss your grandmother's estate. I shoved the contract into Gran's recipe box and thrust it at Ruby. Back door. Go to my apartment. Don't stop for anything. Ruby hesitated only a moment before slipping out through the kitchen. The pounding continued. I know you're in there. Your aunt's car is outside. A pause. Don't make me call the police, Laurel. I have documentation proving your grandmother wasn't of sound mind when she changed her will. Opal's laugh was bitter. Documentation he fabricated, no doubt. She straightened her spine. Let him in. It's time we ended this charade. Are you insane? I hissed, but I was already moving toward the door. 20 years of questions were about to be answered, one way or another. Clyde burst in the moment I turned the lock, rain dripping from his expensive coat. He'd aged since I'd last seen him, but his eyes were still cold and calculating. Where is it? He demanded, scanning the room. Hello to you too, stepfather, I said, ice in my voice. Please come in. Make yourself at home. Don't play games with me, girl. That contract could ruin everything I've built. The contract you used to blackmail my mother? The words felt like poison in my mouth. Or is there another one I should know about? Clyde's face darkened. Your mother made her choice. She knew what would happen if she ever told you the truth about that night. What truth? My voice cracked. What was so terrible that she had to leave her own daughter? The truth, a new voice said from the doorway, about what your father really did to me. We all turned. There stood my mother, soaked from the rain, looking smaller than I remembered. But her eyes were steel as she faced Clyde. You promised, he growled. You signed. I promised to stay quiet to protect my daughter, Marjorie said. But she's not a child anymore. And I'm done letting you use my past against me. She turned to me, tears mixing with raindrops on her face. Your father didn't die in an accident, Laurel. He was murdered. And Clyde. She took a shuddering breath. Clyde helped cover it up. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating all our faces in stark white. The guilty, the innocent, and those of us somewhere in between. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw for the first time the weight she'd been carrying all these years. The choice she'd made wasn't about money at all. It had been about survival. Police lights flashed silently outside Gran's house as Detective Morris took our statements. It was nearly midnight, and the truth about my father's death hung in the air like smoke. Clyde had disappeared into the back of a patrol car an hour ago, leaving chaos in his wake. Let me get this straight, Morris said, reviewing his notes. Your father's car accident in '99 wasn't an accident at all? My mother sat across from me, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea. She hadn't stopped shaking. Frank was going to expose Clyde's embezzlement scheme. The brake lines in his car weren't cut by accident. I stood up abruptly, needing to move. 20 years of believing my father had died because of black ice on a dark road, and now this. Why didn't you tell someone? Why didn't you go to the police back then? Because of these. Aunt Opal spread out more papers on the table, photographs this time. They showed my father's car, but there was something else. Something that made my stomach turn. Clyde made it look like your father had been drinking. He planted evidence. Made sure your mother knew that if she talked, everyone would believe Frank died driving drunk with his 12-year-old daughter in the car. The room spun slightly. I'd been in the car that night. I remembered Dad dropping me at a friend's house just hours before the crash. He threatened to destroy Frank's reputation, my mother whispered. To make you grow up believing your father was responsible for his own death. I couldn't let that happen. Detective Morris's pen scratched across his notepad. And MS. Whitaker, Evelyn, she knew about this. Gran knew everything, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. That's why she left me the diary. She was making sure the truth would come out after she was gone. A soft knock at the door made us all jump. Ruby stood there, still clutching Gran's recipe box with the contract inside. Dad's lawyer is here, she said quietly. He's saying there's no proof. That it's all hearsay after 20 years. The detective's face remained carefully neutral. Physical evidence from that long ago will be difficult to recover. Without a confession. There's more. My mother's voice had changed, stronger now. She reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. I've been collecting evidence for years. Bank records, emails, conversations I recorded. I knew someday Clyde would slip up, get too confident. When he started pushing about Evelyn's estate, I knew it was time. Morris took the drive like it might explode. You've been building a case against your own husband? I've been waiting for a chance to protect my daughter. Both my daughters. She looked at Ruby, then at me. I should have done it sooner. I'm so sorry, Laurel. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself from having to face what I'd done. Ruby moved to sit beside our mother, taking her hand. The gesture was so simple, so forgiving, it made my throat tight. There's something else you should see, Opal said, pulling one final envelope from her bag. Evelyn wrote this the day before she died. She made me promise to keep it until we had proof about Frank's death. The letter inside was in Gran's familiar handwriting, but shakier than I remembered. As I read, my hands began to tremble. My dearest Laurel, it began, by now you know the truth about your father. What you don't know is that he left something for you. Something Clyde has been searching for all these years. I looked up at my mother, whose eyes had gone wide with recognition. The evidence, she breathed, the original evidence of Clyde's embezzlement. Frank hid it somewhere in this house before he died. That's the real reason Clyde wanted the estate. He's still looking for it. Detective Morris was already reaching for his radio. We need to get a forensics team in here. Now. Outside, more police cars were arriving, but I barely noticed. I was already moving toward Gran's study, my mind racing. If Dad had hidden something in this house 20 years ago, there was only one place he would have put it. The same place I used to hide my own secrets as a child, behind the loose brick in the study fireplace. The loose brick slid out easily, as if it had been waiting all these years for my touch. Inside was a dusty manila envelope, sealed with my father's familiar scrawl across the front. For my Laurel, when the time is right. Did you find something? Detective Morris called from the doorway. Before I could answer, Ruby's scream pierced the air. He's out. Dad's out on bail. My mother appeared behind Morris, face ashen. That's impossible. The evidence. His family's lawyers moved fast, Morris said grimly. We need to get that envelope into evidence now. I clutched the package to my chest, my father's last message to me. I need 5 minutes with this first. Laurel. My mother stepped forward. We don't have time. 5 minutes, I repeated, my voice sharp enough to make her flinch. You've had 20 years to process this. I need 5 minutes. I locked myself in Gran's bathroom, hands shaking as I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, photographs, and a letter. But what caught my eye was a small key card with a bank logo and safety deposit box number. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello, Laurel. Clyde's voice was eerily calm. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Nothing here belongs to you. No? Ask your mother about December 12th, 1998. Ask her what really happened to those missing funds before your father started investigating me. The bathroom door rattled. Laurel? It was Ruby. Dad's car just pulled up outside. I stared at the documents in my hands. December 12th, 1998. There it was, a transfer record with my mother's signature. She was in on it, I whispered. At the beginning. Smart girl, Clyde said. Your mother helped me set up those accounts. She only turned on me when your father found out. She's not the victim she pretends to be. The front door slammed downstairs. Heavy footsteps. I'm coming up, Clyde called out. Let's handle this like family. I cracked open the bathroom door. Ruby stood there, tears streaming down her face. Mom's gone. She just ran out the back door. Of course, she had. Running was what she did best. Get these to Morris. I shoved the envelope at Ruby. Go out the window, down the trellis like we used to. Don't stop for anything. What about you? I pulled Gran's diary from my pocket. I need answers first. Laurel? Clyde's voice was closer now. Let's talk about a deal. Ruby squeezed my hand before disappearing through the window. I walked out to face my stepfather, Gran's diary held tight against my chest. He stood at the top of the stairs, still in his expensive suit despite the late hour. Where are the documents?
Gone.
Like your leverage over my mother. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You really think she's worth protecting? After everything she's done? I'm not protecting her. The diary's spine crackled under my grip. I'm finishing what my father started. Your father was a fool who didn't understand business. My father, I said quietly, taught me where to hide things. Want to know what else he taught me? Clyde took a step forward. Don't play games. He taught me that the truth always comes out. December 12th, 1998. I know Mom helped you. But I also know from Gran's diary that she tried to stop you once she realized what you were really doing. That's why you needed her gone, why you threatened her with my father's reputation. His face darkened. You have no proof. I have Gran's diary. I have Ruby's testimony about your threats. And I have. I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording icon. Your confession from downstairs earlier. The police may have let you go, but they're going to love hearing this. Clyde lunged forward just as Detective Morris appeared behind him, gun drawn. That's enough, Morris said. Hands where I can see them. As they led Clyde away again, I saw my mother standing in the garden, watching through tears. She took a step toward the house, but I turned away. Some betrayals cut too deep for second chances. Or so I thought. 3 days after Clyde's arrest, I found myself sitting in the safety deposit box vault, staring at the contents of box 2317. My father's final evidence lay scattered before me. Photos, ledgers, and a videotape labeled insurance. But it was the handwritten confession that made my hands shake. My mother's confession, dated the day before my father died. The bank manager cleared his throat. Dr. Whitaker, your sister's here. Ruby looked exhausted as she slid into the chair beside me. Mom's asking for you. She's not doing well. She's doing exactly what she's always done, I said, spreading out the confession. Running, hiding, lying. She tried to make it right. Ruby's voice cracked. That confession proves it. She was going to turn herself in, turn Dad in too. And Dad died before she could. The words tasted bitter. How convenient. The police found something else. Ruby pulled out her phone, showing me a video. Security footage from the bank, dated December 12th, 1998. My mother, younger and terrified, standing at a teller window while Clyde loomed behind her. His hand gripping her arm, hidden from the teller's view. She was his victim too, Ruby whispered. I shoved back from the table. Don't make excuses for her. She had choices. Like what? Let him kill Dad sooner? Let him come after you. Ruby's voice rose. You read Gran's diary. You know what Clyde was capable of. The diary. I'd been avoiding its final pages, afraid of what else I might learn. Afraid Gran's last words might force me to forgive when all I wanted was justice. My phone buzzed. Detective Morris. Clyde made bail again. Higher-ups intervening. Watch your back. Ruby read the message over my shoulder. He'll come for the evidence. For all of us. Let him try. I gathered the documents, but Ruby grabbed my wrist. You sound just like Dad did.
Her words hit like a slap.
All righteous anger and no self-preservation. Look where that got him. What do you expect me to do? Forgive and forget. I expect you to survive. Ruby's eyes filled with tears. Mom's in the hospital because she finally stood up to him. She took pills, Laurel. They're saying she might not make it. The world tilted sideways. What? She left a note. For you. Ruby pulled out an envelope, hospital letterhead visible through the thin paper. She said if anything happened to her, you'd find the rest of Dad's evidence in her old music box. The one she left behind when she abandoned me. I stared at the envelope, remembering that music box. The one that played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The one I'd smashed against the wall the day after she left. Oh God. The realization hit like ice water. The pieces. I threw them away. What pieces? The music box. I destroyed it. My legs gave out, and I sank into the chair. if there was evidence inside. Ruby's phone rang. Her face went pale as she listened. We have to go.
Now.
Dad's been to the house. He's torn it apart looking for something, and now he's heading to the hospital. To Mom. I looked down at the confession in my hands. 20 years of anger and betrayal warred with the image of my mother, young and frightened, Clyde's hand leaving bruises on her arm. If we lose her, Ruby's voice broke. If he gets to her before she wakes up, we'll never know the whole truth. The truth. I'd been so focused on exposing it, on finally understanding why my family had shattered, that I hadn't considered the cost. Now my mother was dying, Clyde was free, and the final pieces of evidence might be sitting in a landfill somewhere, destroyed by my own teenage rage. Sometimes revenge doesn't taste like justice at all. Sometimes it tastes like ashes and regret. Let's go, I said, pocketing the confession. It's time to end this. One way or another. The hospital corridor stretched before me like a gauntlet. Ruby had gone to get security, leaving me alone outside my mother's room. Through the window, I could see her still form, tubes and wires making her look smaller than I remembered. Movement at the end of the hall caught my eye.
Clyde.
I slipped into the room, quietly closing the door. My mother's heart monitor beeped steadily as I pulled Gran's diary from my bag, finally opening to those last pages I'd been avoiding. I knew you'd come. I spun around. My mother's eyes were open, clear despite the medication. Save your strength, I said, moving toward the call button. She caught my wrist. The music box. Did you find it? I destroyed it. 20 years ago. A faint smile touched her lips.
No.
You didn't. Her voice was barely a whisper. Your grandmother? She saved the pieces. Built a false bottom. In her jewelry box. The door opened. Clyde stood there, his expensive suit incongruous against the sterile hospital walls. Family reunion? His smile didn't reach his eyes. How touching. It's over, Clyde. I positioned myself between him and the bed. We have everything. The confession, the bank footage, Dad's evidence. You have pieces of a puzzle you don't understand. He closed the door behind him. Your father was going to destroy everything I'd built. Your mother helped me stop him. She was trying to protect me, I said, but doubt crept in. You threatened her. Did I? He pulled out his phone, showing me an old email. From my mother to him, dated the day before Dad died. Read it. My hands shook as I took the phone. Meet me at the usual place. Frank suspects nothing. Everything's arranged.
No.
My mother's voice was stronger now. Show her the rest. Clyde's face darkened.
Marjorie?
The rest of the email thread, she insisted. The part where you threatened to hurt Laurel if I didn't help you. The part where you admitted to tampering with Frank's car. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Ruby's voice raised an argument with hospital security. It doesn't matter now. Clyde moved closer to the bed. None of you will testify. Not if you want to keep your medical license, Laurel. Did you think I wouldn't find out about those prescriptions you wrote for your grandmother? The ones that helped ease her passing? My breath caught. Gran's last days. The pain medication. Leave her alone. My mother struggled to sit up. I've already sent copies of everything to the police. Everything, Clyde. Including what you did to your first wife. The monitor's beeping accelerated as Clyde reached for my mother. I moved without thinking, years of suppressed rage finally finding their target. The diary flew from my hands as I shoved him back, papers scattering across the floor. Among them, fluttering like leaves, were photographs. Not from the music box or Dad's evidence, but from Gran's diary. Photos of a young woman, bruised and frightened. Clyde's first wife. Gran knew, I whispered. She knew all along. She tried to warn Frank. My mother's voice cracked. That's why I had to choose. You or him. I chose you. Clyde lunged for the photos, but the door burst open. Ruby stood there with Detective Morris and 2 officers. Actually, Ruby said, holding up her phone, you chose all of us. She'd been recording everything. As they led Clyde away, I picked up Gran's diary. The final entry was short. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of revenge. Forgiveness isn't weakness, my dear Laurel. It's the strength to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. My mother's hand found mine, warm despite everything. I never stopped loving you, she whispered, even when I had to let you hate me. Outside, the sun was rising, painting the hospital room in shades of gold and shadow. Sometimes the light shows us things we couldn't see in the dark, like the difference between justice and revenge, or the fine line between love and sacrifice. I squeezed my mother's hand, 20 years of anger finally giving way to something else, something that felt almost like hope. 6 months after Clyde's conviction, I stood in Gran's study, my study now, sorting through the last of her belongings. Ruby sat cross-legged on the floor, piecing together the restored music box while our mother watched from the doorway, still moving carefully after her hospital stay. "Found it," Ruby announced, fitting the final piece into place. The false bottom slid open with a click, revealing not documents, but a single photograph. My father holding me as a baby, my mother beside him, all of us laughing at something just out of frame. "I remember that day," my mother said softly. Frank had just told one of his terrible jokes. I traced the edge of the photo, wondering how different things might have been if we'd stayed frozen in that moment of joy. Why did Gran keep this hidden instead of the evidence? "Because evidence proves guilt," Ruby said, wisdom beyond her years in her voice. "But this proves there was something worth saving." The doorbell rang. Aunt Opal stood on the porch, clutching a familiar leather-bound book. "Found this while packing up my place," she said, holding out another of Gran's diaries. "It's from before everything, when your parents first met." I took the diary but didn't open it. Some stories didn't need to be excavated. Some truths could rest in peace. "I'm selling the house," I announced suddenly. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me in surprise. "But it's your home," my mother protested. "Everything you fought to protect was never about the house." I moved to the window, watching shadows stretch across Gran's garden. "It was about understanding why. Why you left, why Dad died, why Gran kept so many secrets. But understanding doesn't mean we have to live in the shadow of those choices forever." Ruby stood, brushing dust from her jeans. "Where will you go?" "There's a practice opening up near the coast. They need an oncologist." I turned back to my family, this patchwork of broken pieces we were slowly fitting back together. "It's only an hour away. Close enough for Sunday dinners, far enough to start fresh." My mother's hands trembled as she picked up the music box. When she wound it, Moonlight Sonata filled the room, each note carrying echoes of the past. "Your grandmother wrote something else," Opal said quietly. "In that last diary, about revenge and forgiveness being 2 sides of the same coin, both ways of holding on to pain." "And what's the alternative?" I asked. Ruby answered, "Letting go." Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat in Gran's chair one last time. The study felt different now, lighter somehow. On my laptop, an email from Detective Morris waited. They'd found more of Clyde's victims, other families he'd tried to destroy. My testimony wouldn't be needed at the new trials. I closed the laptop without responding. Let someone else carry the torch of justice. My war was over. The music box sat on the desk, moonlight gleaming off its restored surface. Inside, beneath the false bottom, I'd placed a new photograph, one taken last week at Ruby's graduation. My mother and I flanking her, all of us smiling despite the years of pain between us. Or maybe because of them. Gran's final diary entry had been right. The strongest families aren't the ones that never break, but the ones that learn to rebuild from the pieces. I packed the music box carefully in my bag. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for coastal properties. Something with big windows and a garden, where shadows couldn't linger. Maybe with room for guests. As I locked up the house one last time, I thought I caught a whiff of Gran's perfume, heard the echo of her laugh. But when I turned, there was only moonlight and the soft whisper of leaves in the garden she'd loved so much. Some ghosts, I was learning, don't need to be exorcised. Some can stay, teaching us how to love better, forgive deeper, live fuller. And sometimes, The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. I drove away from my grandmother's house for the last time, the music box safe beside me, carrying its cargo of broken melodies and new beginnings.
Hello, my name is Lily, a 33-year-old writer whose first mystery novel was a smashing success. I've been married for 8 years to my husband, Thomas. We share a 7-year-old son named Gary. Originally, Thomas worked, but he left his job a few years ago when my writing career took off, allowing him the leisure to stay at home, though he occasionally ventured out to play slot machines. Lately, however, I've been facing a distressing situation. Thomas has been involved in an affair, lavishly spoiling his mistress with expensive gifts, shockingly financed by my own credit card. This betrayal, which I've endured for the sake of our son, has reached a point where I can no longer bear the strain. On a peculiar morning, Thomas dressed in a suit, an unusual choice given his current routine of unemployment. Curious, I asked him about it. He appeared startled at first, but gained his composure to tell me he was heading for a job interview, hinting at a potential shift towards contributing financially again. I wished him luck, sincerely hoping this marked a positive change. However, my trust wavered when he returned home at 2 a.m., leaving me awake and filled with doubts about the true nature of his outing. Working late to meet an upcoming deadline, my heart sank when Thomas staggered through the door well past midnight. He collapsed on the living room sofa, his suit reeking of alcohol and perfume, his smartphone loosely clutched in his hand, screen glaringly unlocked. Driven by a mix of suspicion and disbelief, I peered at his phone. The texts I saw confirmed the unthinkable. Thomas was having an affair. But the pain deepened as I realized his lover was none other than my close friend, Gloria. The messages revealed they had dined at a luxurious restaurant known for its romantic night views, a place he had never taken me. The shock was like a physical blow. Tears clouded my vision as I grappled with the betrayal of two people I trusted deeply. Gloria, who was married herself, had always been a confidant. In quiet turmoil, not wanting to awaken Thomas, I quickly forwarded the incriminating evidence to my own phone to safeguard it. I needed time to think, to plan my next steps carefully. The following morning, as if nothing had happened, Thomas carried on with his usual demeanor. I approached him casually. "Hey, Thomas, about yesterday. You said you had an interview, but came home quite late. What happened?" He averted his eyes, clearly searching for an excuse. "Actually, I ran into a friend after the interview, and we ended up going for a drink," he muttered. "A friend? Someone I don't know?" I probed, though I already knew the answer. "I don't have to explain everything, do I?" He snapped back. "Yeah, you're right," I replied, a mix of frustration and resignation settling in. His evasion confirmed my worst fears about his ongoing deceit with Gloria. A month after uncovering the painful truth about my husband Thomas's affair, I was still wrestling with indecision. The reality of confronting him loomed large. Doing so could very well spell the end of our marriage. Under different circumstances, I might have already presented him with the evidence and filed for divorce. However, our son Gary, only 7 years old, was my primary concern. I couldn't bear the thought of tearing his father away from him at such a tender age. Meanwhile, Thomas seemed to exploit my busy schedule. He began leaving the house more often while my days were consumed by writing in my room. Although this hurt, it also presented an unexpected opportunity to gather more evidence of his infidelity. During one of his outings, I sifted through his belongings and discovered a collection of receipts for luxury women's items, none of which were found in our home, nor had they been gifted to me. It was clear he was purchasing these for Gloria, but the source of the funds was baffling. He had no job and was living off the allowance I provided, which left no room for such extravagant expenses. Driven by a need to uncover more, I decided to follow him. But first, I needed someone to look after Gary. I called my brother, who was unaware of the situation. "I'm sorry for calling you over so suddenly," I apologized when he arrived. "No, I don't mind. But what's up?" "You suddenly said you want me to look after Gary," he inquired with a puzzled look. "There's something I really need to go shopping for on my own," I explained, crafting a cover story. "Shopping? You've never been materialistic." "You usually shop online," he observed, clearly skeptical. "I know," I replied, feeling a twinge of guilt for the deception, but knowing it was necessary to protect my family and uncover the full extent of Thomas's betrayal. In the chill of an early morning, with my heart weighed down by doubt, I asked my brother for a favor. "I need to pick something up from a store today, something I can't order online. Can you watch Gary for a bit?" I tried to keep my voice light, hiding the real reason behind my urgent need to leave the house. "Of course, but try to come back soon, okay? Gary might start missing you," my brother responded, concern evident in his tone. "Thanks so much," I said, my gratitude genuine despite the turmoil swirling inside me. With my brother's unwitting assistance, I was free to pursue the truth about Thomas's activities. Blending into the crowd, I followed Thomas from a safe distance, my heart sinking further with each step he took toward his destination. My worst fears were confirmed when I spotted him cozy and carefree, strolling into an upscale boutique arm in arm with Gloria. Witnessing their intimacy firsthand was a harsh blow. As they laughed and perused the items, Thomas made his way to the cashier. I watched, hidden behind a display, as he confidently handed over a credit card, the very card from the back of my drawer that was meant for emergencies. This secondary card, seldom used by me, had been his secret tool for financing these extravagant purchases. Realization dawned on me. I had been so engrossed in my writing and upcoming deadlines that I hadn't monitored our finances closely. Significant charges had accumulated on the card from my recent work-related expenses. At all this time, Thomas had been adding his deceitful transactions to the bill. Both of our cards were linked to the same account, and I had missed the signs of his betrayal hidden amidst my expenses. Stunned by the depth of his deceit, not only had Thomas betrayed my trust romantically, but he had also abused my financial resources. I felt the last strands of affection for him evaporate. Self-reproach mingled with my shock. I chastised myself for not noticing sooner and for allowing his duplicity to go unchecked. The realization of his double betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, marking a turning point in how I viewed our marriage. Despite the crushing evidence of betrayal, I couldn't find it within myself to forgive Thomas. With a heavy heart, I documented his intimate moments with Gloria through discreet photographs before heading home. In the days that followed, I poured my energy into devising a plan to confront him. Whenever he was out, I scoured his PC for more clues. Since his phone and computer were linked, I could easily access their communications, and it wasn't long before I uncovered plans for a getaway with Gloria over the upcoming holiday, a 6-day trip. "This is my chance," I muttered to myself, a mix of resolve and despair coloring my thoughts. I planned to confront Thomas and settle matters while he was away with his lover. However, I faced a significant obstacle: our son, Gary. I needed to ensure he remained shielded from the painful truth of his father's affair, and executing my plan without him getting wind of any details would be tricky. Reluctantly, I decided to seek help from my brother once more. "I hate to ask, but can you look after Gary during the upcoming holidays?" I inquired, trying to sound casual. "The holidays? You mean all 6 days? He asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Yes, I have something important to handle, I replied, trying to mask my anxiety. Something important, huh? He eyed me with a look that suggested he knew more than I had shared. His next words caught me off guard. Lily, you don't have to handle everything by yourself. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Thomas is cheating, isn't he? He said bluntly. My heart skipped a beat. How did you? I stammered, but he cut me off. I heard it from Gary, he said gently. Gary, my son, knew. Even though he was just a child, it appeared he had picked up on enough to realize something was amiss. He had seen his father getting close to someone who wasn't me, and it had upset him. My brother's revelation was a stark reminder of how sensitive and observant children can be, even at a young age. It seemed Gary had sensed the tension and sadness in our home, further complicating the emotional landscape of our family. I had thought I was shielding Gary well from the turmoil at home. Why? My brother pressed gently, his words cutting through my defenses. Thomas's actions have hurt you enough for even Gary to notice. Are you considering staying with him? As I wrestled with the implications of a divorce, fearing it would deeply affect Gary, my son unexpectedly walked into the room. It's okay, Mom. I'm on your side, he said, his young voice resolute. I don't want anyone who makes you sad, Mom. As long as I have you, I'm fine. His words, so mature for his age, brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, Gary. I managed, my voice thick with emotion. Turning to my brother, I added, and thank you too. Bolstered by the support of my son and brother, I found the courage to face what needed to be done. Gary and I began to plan our move, timing it for when Thomas would be away on his trip with Gloria. My brother aided us in packing discreetly, ensuring everything was ready for a swift departure. The evening before Thomas was set to leave, I decided it was time to confront him directly. I found him packing a suitcase in our bedroom. Thomas, why are you packing a suitcase? What's going on? I asked, feigning ignorance. Oh, this? I'm going on a trip with some friends starting tomorrow, he replied, avoiding my gaze. A trip? Why didn't you mention this earlier? I probed, pushing for more details. It was a last-minute plan. Nothing serious. I'm using my monthly allowance for it, he said dismissively, his tone suggesting he wanted to end the conversation. Despite his discomfort, he continued to mask the truth. I took a deep breath and, in a calm, determined voice that I rarely used, asked, Are you sure it's just with your friends? Thomas visibly tensed, his shoulders twitching with nerves. Despite his obvious unease, he stubbornly clung to his lie. You are insistent, aren't you? He stammered. All right, I understand. Enjoy your trip with your friends, I said, the irony not lost in my tone. I would have enjoyed it anyway, he muttered, but the assurance in his voice was forced. With everything laid bare, I knew what needed to be done. My brother, my son, and my resolve had set the stage for a new beginning, free from deceit. The next morning, after he had left for his trip, I checked the drawer, and sure enough, he had taken my credit card again. I acted swiftly, calling the card company to report it lost and had it deactivated. When my son woke up, his eyes sparkled with excitement as he asked, Mom, today's the day, right? The day we moved to our new house. Any lingering doubts I had evaporated in that moment. Yes, Gary, I smiled, reassured by his enthusiasm. I've canceled the credit card, and now it's time for us to start fresh in our new home. With my brother's assistance, the move was seamless. We transferred our belongings to our new home, while my husband's things were sent elsewhere. The next day, as we settled into our new space with my son and brother, a profound sense of peace and anticipation for the future filled me. When my husband called, his voice came through the line hesitantly. "Hello. Oh, Lily, what is it?" "Well, this trip is turning out to be more expensive than I anticipated. Could you possibly send me some money?" I knew immediately that he was feeling the pinch financially because I had frozen the credit card. He was skirting around the real issue. His unauthorized use of the card and his indirect request for money was irritating. "Did you budget for this trip on your own?" I asked calmly. "I'm sorry, but I can't lend you any money." His response carried a tone of frustration. "Don't be like that. If you don't help me, I'll be the only one not enjoying this trip." "You mean you'll be the only one?" He corrected himself. His confusion was apparent even through the phone. "After all, you're on a trip. You want to show only the good parts, right? But sorry, the card you took is no longer valid, so you'll have to manage." "What are you talking about, Lily? What card?" He feigned ignorance. Pretending not to know won't help, I countered, my voice firm. "You're panicking because you're saying things that don't make sense." "I don't know anything about a card," he insisted. "Enough," I exclaimed, my patience wearing thin. "I already know you've been cheating on me with my best friend, Gloria. What did you think, that I had no idea?" "Are you kidding me? It's obvious." "No, it's not what you think." "I'm not cheating," he tried to assure me, his voice desperate. I was furious that he continued to deny everything. Standing there with my brother and son next to me, all my pent-up fury erupted. "Stop making excuses. You had a family, and you cheated with another woman. And to top it off, you've been using someone else's card. Do you even realize how despicable your actions are?" Lily, let's calm down for a moment," he tried to soothe, but it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. How can I remain calm when I'm dealing with the person I despise the most? I seethed into the phone. "Just so you're aware, I have no intention of forgiving you or offering you any help. And as for her, she can take her chances elsewhere. Never show your face to Gary and me again." With those final words, I hung up on my husband. Moments later, his mistress Gloria called. "Hey Lily, what on earth did you do?" "Ah, Gloria, long time no see." "How's your trip going with my husband?" I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Shut up and explain yourself." "What are you talking about?" She snapped back. "Don't play dumb. You received Thomas's things at your house, didn't you?" I replied, indeed, when we moved out, I had directed all of my husband's belongings to be sent directly to Gloria's address. Given that Gloria was also married, her husband was naturally there to receive the shipment. This was precisely why I had sent everything there, along with a detailed letter explaining the entire situation. She yelled back, her voice cracking under stress. "This isn't a joke. What have you done?" My husband found out, and now he's furious. "Well, you brought this upon yourself by choosing to have an affair while married. You were supposed to be my friend, and this is a betrayal," I retorted. "You're the worst." "I misjudged you," she accused. "Excuse me. That's rich coming from you," I fired back. "My best friend having an affair with my husband. How could you expect any forgiveness?" I didn't mean it seriously. It was just a joke. I would never actually be interested in someone like him, she tried to downplay. I don't care if it was a joke or not. I'm filing for divorce anyway, and yes, you did have an affair. That's a fact. I'll never forgive you, and I'll be seeking significant compensation, so be prepared. Compensation? What are you talking about? I didn't agree to anything like that, she protested. Well, you're going to hear about it soon enough. It's what you deserve, I concluded as she realized the gravity of the situation. I'm a housewife. I can't pay any compensation, she pleaded, her voice filled with desperation. "I don't care. Figure it out yourself or ask your husband. Though I doubt he'll be much help," I said sharply. "Oh, wait. Goodbye." I hung up before she could respond and promptly blocked her number. Later, I engaged my lawyer to finalize my divorce and sought compensation from my ex-husband and Gloria, along with child support. I also demanded repayment for the unauthorized credit card charges. The financial strain was too much for Gloria's marriage. After settling the compensation, her husband filed for divorce, and she found herself without a home. She sought refuge with her parents, but they, disheartened by her actions, turned her away. With limited options, Gloria now lives where she works, taking up night shifts at a local bar. Thomas, too, sought comfort from Gloria during this turbulent time, but overwhelmed by her crisis and furious with him for causing her divorce, she ended their relationship. Thomas is now juggling several part-time jobs, struggling to make ends meet. His prolonged period of unemployment has hindered his ability to find stable work. Should he ever fall behind on his alimony or child support payments, I am prepared to pursue what he owes without hesitation. As for myself, life has settled into a peaceful rhythm in our new home with my son. He's growing up fast, and each day is filled with new joys and adventures. My primary focus is on providing him with all the love and stability he needs, ensuring he never has to face the kind of turmoil we've gone through again. Our days are brighter now, and I'm committed to making sure they stay that way. I'm a 33-year-old office worker. My husband, Tony, is 5 years older, and we've been married for 7 years. Currently, due to certain circumstances, I live with my mother. Please ask me how I ended up in this situation. Going back 2 years, Tony and I built a house. At the time, Tony had just switched jobs, and we didn't have much in the way of savings or income. Tony's previous job was at a major corporation. However, he suffered from insidious harassment from his boss, leading to sleepless nights, and a few months later, he became unable to go to work. He consulted a psychiatrist and took a leave of absence for about 3 months, but with no signs of recovery, he ultimately resigned. After that, we managed to live on my salary alone. Tony, unemployed for 2 months, began to regain his energy. He started eating well and sleeping again, and his psychiatrist was happy about his speedy recovery. My positive, beloved Tony was back. From there, he vigorously searched for a job. His experience at a major corporation was an advantage, but due to his reason for resignation being mental health, finding a new job wasn't easy. During this time, we found a small company that needed him. His salary was about 2/3 of what he used to earn, but seeing his eyes shine as he said, "It's way better than being jobless. Let's do this," made me happy. Moreover, it was in the field that he wanted. We wanted to have children, but it was clear that life would become difficult if I stopped working. As a result, and because I also loved my job, we gave up on having children. At the time, we didn't think about building a house as it was just the 2 of us. However, a cloud overshadowed our peaceful life. My mother, Karen, became paralyzed due to a traffic accident and had to live in a wheelchair. Since my father passed away when I was in middle school, Karen had been living alone. Our family home was an old house, far from being wheelchair-friendly with many steps. Tony then suggested, "I'm worried. Let's live together." Karen and I were surprised, but I love this kind of unexpected kindness from Tony. Tony had just changed jobs, so we didn't know what would happen, but we decided to apply for a mortgage. As expected, it was difficult to get a loan due to the short length of his current employment. But we possessed something unbeatable: determination and an unbreakable spirit, our greatest strengths. We persisted. Trying out a fifth mortgage company, it was indeed difficult to get Tony's loan approved, but the loan officer proposed various options to us. We took a chance on one of these proposals, and it led to a successful loan approval. We finally decided to buy our own home. I had always dreamed of living in a house filled with the scent of wood, thick exposed wooden beams on the ceiling, customized storage spaces designed just for us, a kitchen adjusted to my short stature, and spacious flooring made of cypress. Of course, it is a barrier-free, single-story house, perfect for comfortable living in a wheelchair. We couldn't wait for it to be completed and made a daily routine of visiting the construction site. Then our painstakingly designed dream home was finished. It has a large yard where my mother, who had become reluctant to go out, can now enjoy sunbathing. However, there was one dissatisfaction. The land on which we built was given to us by Tony's grandfather. Tony's family wasn't particularly rich, but his grandfather adored him. But then Tony's grandfather was suddenly diagnosed with cancer. Upon learning of his illness, he began to distribute his assets. Tony received the largest plot of land as per his grandfather's wishes. It felt like winning the lottery, but there was a major catch. The land was just a 5-minute walk from Tony's family home. When we told them that my mother would be moving in with us, Tony's sister laughed and said, "Why is your mother moving in too? How shameless is your family? I knew marrying a strange woman like you would cause trouble." Tony's mother also snidely remarked, "Isn't it awful for my son to be dragged into caring for the elderly? Aren't you some kind of curse?" Even during these times, Tony defended my mother and me, saying, "It's the land that Grandpa gave me. There's no reason for anyone to complain." Tony's mother and sister are quite malicious, almost world-class. I think it's a miracle that such a kind person like Tony was raised in that family. To me, he's like a beautiful lotus flower blooming out of the mud. Tony always said about his family, "I have 2 great examples of what not to be at home." But I'm sure the reason Tony's grandfather gave us this land was probably because he wanted us to look after his mother in her old age. He also had other properties, and gave Tony's sister a parking lot located a 10-minute walk from their family home. In terms of size, it's about 2/3 of the land that Tony received. However, it already has a full parking contract, so the monthly parking lot income is significant. Personally, I would have preferred that, but you can't complain about a gift. It is something to be grateful for. In reality, thanks to my grandfather-in-law, we were able to build a house. Having no cost for the land and being able to use it as collateral for a loan made a big difference. Once the house was completed, we invited my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family. However, during construction, we heard from the builders that they had come to see the house several times without our permission. They arrived an hour and a half later than the agreed time without any apology. Pardon our intrusion. This is kind of like Grandpa's house too, so it's kind of like our house as well. Oh, such a nice house. The smell of wood is nice. No need for air fresheners, said my sister-in-law as she waltzed in. Even though her shoes were muddy because of the rain, she didn't mind at all and went straight into our newly built house. Her husband also walked around in muddy shoes, ignoring the slippers we had prepared. When I urged, "We have slippers available if you'd like to wear them," my sister-in-law laughed and replied, "It's such a hassle. You can just wipe the floor." From the get-go, the atmosphere was terrible, and of course they came empty-handed. After touring the rooms, they reached my mother's room. My mother's room is the most spacious and has the best sunlight. At my mother's request, we designed it like a duplex, complete with a kitchen. It's a room like a second living area. Seeing this, my mother-in-law said, "I'm fine with this room. I want to live here." On the third thing to say, my mother-in-law told my mother, "You were fortunate to have that accident, weren't you? Thanks to being paraplegic, you've moved from that old shack into such a nice house. Isn't it a turn of fortune?" My mother said nothing, but she looked so sad. Inside, I was boiling over with anger. But before I could respond, Tony spoke up. "What did you just say?" "There are things you can and can't say to people. It makes me question your humanity. I don't even want to think that you're part of my family. You're the worst." "Apologize now," Tony said in a strong tone. Whether they found this amusing or not, my mother and sister-in-law glared at me. Then my sister-in-law confronted Tony with a heated look. What's this all about? That's a total turnoff. It's not cool to invite people and then treat them like that. Just because you built a house doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty." The mother-in-law joined in too. "Anyway, my son went off the rails because he ended up with a wife like you. You're a jinx." Tony didn't stay silent either. "Enough is enough. This mess started because of your rude remarks. You were saying that the accident was a good thing and calling my wife a jinx. I will not forgive you for that." The mother and sister-in-law looked frustrated by Tony's strong rebuttal. Then my mother, who had been watching the whole scene, apologized with a regretful look. "It's okay. I'm living together with them because I actually had an accident. And it's true that I was able to live in this beautiful house from a run-down one. Your son has always been kind to me. Thank you." Perhaps feeling guilty, the mother and sister-in-law left, shooting me a nasty look. My mother then apologized to Tony. "I'm sorry. I must have upset your mother and sister. I'm sorry I ruined the mood on the day of the housewarming party because of me." Tony also said, "No, I should be the one apologizing. It's embarrassing. They really lack decency. I'm really sorry, but I am happy to be living with you. Please understand that." With that, my mother started to tear up. Since it's near Tony's parents' house, the neighbors are all people we know. They've all known Tony since he was a child, so they're very kind to us. 4 months have passed since that mess. When we were finally getting used to our new home and my mother started to smile more, an incident occurred. I received a call from home while I was at work. We rarely get calls from home, so it startled me. My bad feeling came true. My mother, unable to hide her agitation, called me. "It's awful. Tony collapsed at work." I too was agitated by this serious tone. I immediately consulted with my boss and headed to the hospital. On the way, I tried to remain calm by unconsciously imagining positive scenarios, like when I get to the hospital, he'll be all right, and joking around to keep me in good spirits. But when I arrived at the hospital, I couldn't believe my eyes. My husband, who was supposed to have gone to work cheerfully after eating breakfast as usual, we were supposed to have a movie date this weekend. But now what I see is him with countless tubes connected to his body. I was completely lost. The doctor said he's in a very dangerous condition. Even if he survives, we don't know if he will regain consciousness. I felt as if I was in a movie. I couldn't even cry. I prayed fervently, yet my prayers went unanswered. My husband, Tony, passed away just like that. In my state of shock, my mother and sister-in-law showed up as expected. When they heard Tony had passed away, my sister-in-law aggressively asked, "Did you poison him or something? Were you after his life insurance money?" Following suit, my mother-in-law cornered me too. "Bad things always happen when you're around, just like your mother. You really are a jinx." I was so sad I couldn't speak. Just then, my mother arrived in a caregiver's taxi. She was crying at the circumstances of Tony's death. Seeing my mother in tears, I was finally able to cry as well. As the two of us sobbed loudly, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, stop it. Can't you quit the fake cry? My son changed after meeting you too. Now that my son is gone, I don't want to see your faces ever again. Don't appear before us again." And then she left the hospital. From there, we had a funeral director come in and arrange the schedule for the funeral. We headed to the funeral home. Tony's cause of death was a subarachnoid hemorrhage. I couldn't believe it. He was fine until morning. When I informed my mother-in-law about the funeral schedule, she replied unexpectedly, "He's always sided with you too, so I won't attend the funeral. My daughter won't come either." Many people from Tony's company and his friends attended the viewing. However, neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law and her husband were present. It's unbelievable, but maybe that's just the kind of people they were. Many people attended the funeral too, and I could tell that Tony was loved by many. There were many who shed tears for his untimely death. I was glad to spend the whole day with those who sincerely missed my husband. I had received an email from my mother-in-law after Tony's death, but its content was inappropriate, so I didn't reply. The email was asking about the amount of life insurance money. She kept emailing because I hadn't replied and eventually said, "I have a right to receive it." I wasn't in a position to deal with it, so I ignored it. When we arrived at our house, I saw a light seeping out of a room. My mother, Karen, looked puzzled and said, "That's strange. I thought we turned off all the lights." "Maybe I forgot to turn it off because I was too agitated," I replied. "That's all right. It's only natural to be upset given the situation," I said, unlocking the door to our house. Sure enough, we could hear the sound of a TV coming from inside. Definitely weird. My mom and I exchanged glances, then fearfully entered the room. There sitting in the room were my sister-in-law and her husband. "What are you doing?" I was so surprised that I couldn't even raise my voice. The living room was filled with unfamiliar furniture and boxes. We had absolutely no clue what was happening. My sister-in-law then said, "Why did you just barge in here?" "Well, it's your first time, so I'll let you off the hook. We're taking this house. We sold your stuff, so leave." My mother and I were utterly stunned. We had no idea what was going on. When I asked, "Where did our stuff and furniture go?" she nonchalantly replied, "We had a resale company come today, and they took everything." "You had some pretty good furniture. We got a good price for it. We bought this furniture with that money. Who wants furniture that a dead person used? It's bad luck, isn't it? I'm the type to care about such things. Your stuff is packed in these boxes. I don't know if you're minimalists or just poor, but it was a relief that you had so few things." The furniture was carefully chosen by my husband. I absolutely couldn't forgive them. My mom was also furious, her face turning beet red, but she was too shocked to reply. I immediately called the resale company. After explaining the situation, they agreed to treat the items as stolen and return them. Honestly, now that my husband is gone, I want nothing to do with his family. But I do feel a desire to stay in the house filled with memories of him. As I was struggling with these feelings, my mother said to me in a voice only I could hear, "What do you think Tony would say if he were here now?" Maybe he'd say we should leave. I'm sure that's true. Tony always used to say, "It's worth spending time with people who understand you." But there are also people who just won't get it, no matter how much you explain. It's a waste of time dealing with those low-level aliens. He was, in fact, talking about his mother and sister. I can see it clearly now. If we continue to live here, his family and relatives will keep interfering. I impulsively signed a lease on an accessible apartment. My mother was taken aback by my decisiveness. I asked the resale company to keep the furniture for a few days, and it was moved to the new apartment 3 days later. In exchange for moving out, I made the mother and sister-in-law promise to cut ties with us. And so, a new life began with just my mother and me in the apartment. It seems that Tony has so many life insurance policies, it was almost obsessive. Tony often joked, always with a smile, "When I die, you guys will be rich." True to his word, my husband left my mother and me enough money to be comfortable for the rest of our lives. He was unable to secure a mortgage when we bought the house, so being an employee at a major corporation, I purchased the house under my name. I ensured that even if something happened to Tony first, I certainly wasn't stupid enough to continue paying a mortgage for a house I wouldn't live in. Under the original contract, the house would be auctioned off if the mortgage wasn't paid for 3 months. In the hustle and bustle of life, 3 months passed in a flash. Then I received a barrage of calls from my sister-in-law Jessica with astounding fury. My call history was filled with Jessica and my mother-in-law Linda. What the heck? This is seriously scary. It sounds like something out of a horror movie. I thought it was a little horror movie. Since they were being incredibly persistent, I picked up the phone only to find out they were furious that the house was being sold. Apparently, when they returned home, they were unable to get in, and there was a seizure notice. Jessica and her husband moved out of the apartment they had been living in since Tony passed away, and Jessica had also quit her job. I suggested that they move back into their parents' house since they were panicking about suddenly being homeless. To my surprise, Linda had become so involved in gambling that she couldn't keep up and had sold her own house. It seems they had been living together for the past 2 months. From what I hear, they even sold their primary source of income, a parking lot in front of the train station, a long time ago. Now Linda and Jessica's family are completely homeless. When Linda said, "I'm sorry for everything. Let's get along. Can you lend me some money, please?" I replied, "I think it's best if you stay away since I'm a jinx. We're strangers now that we've severed ties." Linda fell silent after mumbling a weak, "Odd." In my mind, I was laughing, thinking, who's the real bad luck charm here? Then when I said, "I won't lend you a single cent," Jessica, who had been listening to the conversation next to Linda, shouted, "You devil. Bring us the money right now." I am a devil and bad luck, so I'm going to hang up now. I replied and ended the call. In truth, I had a lawyer involved for the past 3 months pushing for the auction of the house. I thought it was an unusual case, but apparently it's not that uncommon. The house was sold without any major trouble, allowing our family a moment of respite. We planned to find a new home with the money Tony left us. Given it's just my mother and me, we don't need a big house. We'd rather prioritize security as 2 women living together. And so I chose a condominium with minimal noise disturbance. I remember something my husband always said when we built our home. People can get energy from the sun, so let's create a place where the mother-in-law can enjoy her hobby of reading in the garden without feeling self-conscious. With those words, he had made a spacious courtyard for her. So I looked for a condo with a large balcony where she could enjoy her coffee and read. It's smaller than our previous home, but the room is spacious enough to house the furniture my husband proudly chose. The piece of land that was gifted to us by Tony's grandfather was expansive, and the house sold for more than expected. With that money, I bought a rather luxurious condominium. The security is top-notch, so my worrywart husband would surely rest easy. I heard rumors about my in-laws' family. Our old neighbors were worried about my sister-in-law's family suddenly moving in. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family were left homeless. They even tried to borrow money from neighbors. In the end, they couldn't borrow anything and ended up living in public housing after consulting with the community. But they're stubborn people, so it seems the trouble never ends. From what I've heard, they caused a commotion by having a barbecue on their small balcony. Their thoughtless actions must have shocked the locals. Whether it's due to a lack of money or just frustration, they seem to have loud arguments every night. People are saying they're causing such a racket that it sounds like things are being thrown around. My sister-in-law's husband left a long time ago, and now it's just her and Linda living together. It's quite the contrast to my peaceful life with my mother. Although we're both two-member households, it seems that the neighbors are banding together to try to get this nuisance family evicted. No matter where you go, if you're a nuisance, people won't welcome you. And what goes around comes around. I just want to live peacefully and quietly, estranged from my embarrassing family. I believe that Tony is surely watching over us. From now on, I plan to live my life without causing trouble to others, and do my best to live not just for myself, but for Tony as well.
Greetings. My name is Luna. Recently divorced, 38-year-old woman. In the end, divorcing my husband was a freedom that I had never felt. Actua meet my ex-husband, Michael. A mutual friend of Michael and myself set us up on a blind date. There was no doubt he was attractive and had a way of drawing you in. Michael was just everything I wanted in a man from the get-go. We had a lot in common and hit it off naturally. For the first 7 months, we enjoyed casual dating, taking turns planning, engaging, and enjoyable activities. Once we became an official couple, we kept up our dynamic outings. A year into our relationship, we moved in together. It was during this period that I became acquainted with Michael's financial situation, which wasn't very stable. Although I offered advice to help him advance professionally, he rarely took it seriously. Nonetheless, he earned enough for his needs, and I was prepared to support us both financially. After 3 years together, we married, and a year later, decided to buy a house, securing the mortgage solely under my name due to my superior credit score. A decision I now view as particularly fortunate. However, 4 years into our marriage, I noticed a shift in Michael's behavior. He became increasingly demanding and gradually stopped contributing to household chores, claiming he was too occupied with work. Despite my understanding and attempts to manage everything solo, the burden became exhausting. I addressed this issue with Michael, and he would momentarily promise to improve, but we quickly reverted to our previous pattern. This was frustrating, yet I tolerated it out of love and a desire to support him fully. Unfortunately, our relationship suffered, especially in terms of leisure and fun, as I simply lacked the time and energy. It was under these strained circumstances that I discovered Michael was unfaithful, a revelation that prompted me to reevaluate our relationship and ultimately choose to free myself from the marriage. I stumbled upon my husband's affair quite unexpectedly. He had left his phone unlocked when he went to take a shower. I had no intention of snooping. I simply wanted to put his phone on the charger when a particular notification caught my eye. It was a message from a woman named Isabella, asking Michael how long until he would leave his pathetic wife to meet her at a nearby motel. The shock and heartbreak were immediate. I couldn't believe Michael was capable of cheating. Our marriage seemed solid. Michael always greeted me with warmth, and we hardly ever argued. The pain was overwhelming, a mix of the urge to cry and the feeling of nausea as my world seemed to fall apart. Yet at that moment, I knew I had to confront the situation head-on. I left Michael's phone just as I found it, with the message open, ensuring he would know I had seen it. When Michael emerged from the shower and saw his phone, he instantly realized I was aware of his affair. He tried to dodge the conversation, but I was determined to address it. "You know I know about the affair. Let's talk about it." "I don't think we should," he replied. "Who is she?" "I'm sure you saw enough to know her name." "When did it start?" "A year ago." "Can we not do this right now?" "Why did you start seeing her?" "Please, let's not do this." "Don't call me babe. Tell me." "I don't know. I guess I just missed the thrill of someone new. Someone who's on the same wavelength as me." "So, I'm not on the same wavelength as you?" "Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. It's just, you've become a bit dull." "Excuse me?" "I mean, you never want to go out, you're always tired, and our social life, even our life in the bedroom, has faded. You realize I'm always tired because I handle all the chores and work full-time. You've never once offered to help out. That's just your role as my wife. I told you to stay at home, but you refused." This revelation and confrontation marked a turning point, making it clear that our perceptions of marriage and responsibilities differed vastly. His words and actions shattered the foundation of trust and mutual respect I thought we had. "I'm the head of the house. I can do whatever I want. And if that means having an affair for some fun, then so be it." Michael's words cut through the air as he asserted his distorted view of freedom within our marriage. I had hoped that we could discuss this and perhaps mend our relationship, but his stance made it clear that would not happen. "I don't think anything will change. You're just too dull. I'm happy to stay married, but I'll continue seeing Isabella. I need some space from you," he declared, his tone devoid of regret. As Michael retreated to another room, the gravity of his words weighed heavily on me. He was unapologetic and dismissive, reducing me to merely a role within our home. Despite never previously holding such outdated views on gender roles, Michael had been influenced by podcasts preaching that women were too outspoken and needed to be put back in their place. It was devastating to witness his transformation into a person who not only embraced these ideas, but refused to see the harm they caused. Shortly after, I heard the main door close. Michael had left to meet Isabella. Alone, overwhelmed by a sense of abandonment and betrayal, I broke down, unable to bear the solitude and the swirling storm of emotions. I phoned my best friend Judy. She answered immediately, hearing the distress in my voice. Judy arrived swiftly, armed with comforting hugs and tubs of ice cream. She didn't press for details. Instead, she simply held me as I cried. When I finally calmed down enough, I opened up about the painful revelation. "Michael is cheating on me, Judy. It's true." "Are you sure?" she asked, a frown of concern etching her face. "Absolutely. His phone was unlocked, and I saw a message from a woman asking when he was leaving his pathetic wife to meet her." "What the hell? Did you confront him about it?" "Yes, I did. He barely wanted to discuss it." Judy stayed with me through the night, providing the silent, steadfast support I needed to face the reality of my crumbling marriage. As we sat together, the reality of my situation sank in, and though the path ahead was uncertain, I knew I wasn't alone. I finally confronted him and learned the painful truth. He had been cheating on me for a year, citing that I had become too boring. According to him, I was always too tired and never up for anything fun. Although I managed practically everything at home, he dismissed my efforts, claiming that was my role as his wife. Really? Well then, his role as a husband should have been more honorable. But instead, here he is, cheating on his wife, I remarked to Judy, still reeling from the shock. Judy shook her head in disbelief. "That's just a pathetic excuse. Did he even apologize?" "Not for a moment," I replied. "He just blamed me and chose to spend the night with her. Honestly, Judy, if I had to face him now, I don't know what I'd do." "So, what are you thinking about doing next?" "I don't know. Michael mentioned he doesn't mind staying married, but there's no way I can continue like this. Listen, why don't you stay with me until you figure things out? I'll help you through everything, Judy offered. That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Judy. I really appreciate your support. We spent the rest of the evening trying to unwind, watching our favorite movies. It was a needed distraction, but the reality of my situation lingered in the back of my mind. The next morning, Judy helped me pack some things to take to her place. While settling in at Judy's, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to look up Isabella. I still had access to Michael's social media on my phone, a privilege I never abused before because I had trusted him completely. I discovered that he had muted notifications for messages from Isabella, which explained why the affair had stayed hidden until now. It turns out Isabella was a co-worker of his. Actually, someone who reported directly to him. She was 30, a whole 8 years younger than me, and 11 years younger than Michael. That realization alone was enough to turn my stomach. This discovery only cemented my decision. I needed to divorce Michael. I could not stand the betrayal, nor live with someone who saw me as merely an obligation. With Judy's unwavering support, I began to take steps toward reclaiming my life and dignity. Before I could file for divorce, I needed to sort a few things out. Judy and I spent some time strategizing, not only about the logistics of the separation, but also about ensuring that Michael wouldn't get off too lightly for his betrayal. My first step was to safeguard my finances by transferring all the money I had contributed to our joint account into my personal account, to which Michael had no access. In the following days, as I set the wheels in motion to file for divorce, I heard nothing from Michael. It stung, realizing he hadn't even bothered to check in on me. This indifference seemed to underscore how little he valued our relationship. When I eventually needed to return home to collect more of my belongings, I found Michael lounging on the couch. His reaction upon seeing me was predictable, yet irritating. "Where have you been? Why haven't you told me about your whereabouts?" he demanded, his voice filled with a feigned concern that didn't mask his real detachment. "Why do I need to explain myself to you? You haven't called once." "Don't pretend to care now," I retorted, my patience wearing thin. "I'm sorry, but discovering your infidelity because you found me too boring doesn't exactly inspire politeness," I added sarcastically. Michael seemed taken aback, but quickly shifted the conversation to finances. "I noticed you withdrew a large sum from our joint account," he said, trying to sound casual yet clearly concerned. "Yes, I took back my money." "Why should I let you squander what I've worked hard to earn?" I challenged him. "What do you think you're doing? You need to put that money back," he demanded, his tone turning threatening. "Or what, Michael? You'll kick me out, move in with Isabella, and have your sister move in here?" I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. "Put the money back in 3 hours, or I'll make sure everything changes by tomorrow," he threatened. I responded with silence, walking past him to our room. I quickly packed the rest of my clothes and essentials, leaving him to stew in his frustration. Back at Judy's place, I relayed the entire encounter. Judy was furious on my behalf and insisted we consult a lawyer immediately. Luckily, she knew someone who could help. We met with her lawyer friend who first asked about the house. I explained that both the mortgage and the house title were in my name alone, a result of my well-paying job in a niche field. This detail was crucial as it meant I had significant leverage in the upcoming legal proceedings. With Judy's support and the lawyer's guidance, I felt a bit more prepared to face the challenges ahead. Earning significantly more than Michael, it made sense for me to handle the mortgage and buy our house, establishing it entirely in my name. This financial arrangement was straightforward, and seemed most practical given our respective incomes. Everything the house needed was purchased by me. When I consulted with my lawyer about the impending divorce, he reassured me that the house would legally remain under my name, which lifted a weight off my shoulders. He also explained that if Michael's sister Karen moved in without my consent, I could easily issue an eviction notice. Despite the tension, Michael informed me the next morning that Karen had moved in because I hadn't reversed the money transfer. I kept the conversation brief, which only infuriated him more, and he ended the call abruptly. Following my lawyer's advice, I started recording all conversations with Michael to have a reliable record for potential use in court. My strategy going forward was clear, though it had two possible outcomes. I would serve Karen the eviction notice. If she complied, that would be the end of it. If not, I was prepared to take legal action. Given our strained history, I suspected it wouldn't be straightforward. Karen had always shown a peculiar animosity towards me, often mirroring or trying to outshine me in petty ways. She even attempted to disrupt our wedding and consistently competed with me in trivial matters. Over the years, our relationship had deteriorated to the point where I had to limit contact with her. Michael, overly protective and indulgent towards his sister, often placed me in uncomfortable positions. Karen's resentment grew when she realized she couldn't surpass me in certain areas of life, leading her to petty thefts from our home whenever she visited. I would notice missing items, designer clothes, shoes, and skincare products. Michael would implore me to overlook these incidents, rationalizing that Karen's frugal lifestyle justified her taking some luxuries from us. I strongly disagreed with this and eventually forbade her from visiting our home altogether. This decision did not sit well with Michael or Karen, but Michael was powerless to challenge it, given the legal standings and my control over the property. The situation was complex, but I was determined to stand my ground and proceed with the actions needed to protect my interests and ensure a just resolution to our marital breakdown. Having had enough of Karen's antics and the considerable amount of theft she'd committed from me, I had explained the extent of her actions to Michael. He understood the damage was far beyond what could be easily rectified. However, that didn't stop Karen from trying to provoke me further. One day, she called to flaunt her temporary triumph. "Hello, Luna. Guess where I am right now?" she taunted. "Michael told me you've moved in," I replied, keeping my tone even. "That's right. I have this huge and glorious house all to myself, something you don't," she gloated. "I think I still do have the house. I've already sent an eviction notice your way, and you have 4 days to move out," I informed her calmly. "Huh, an eviction notice from you? Like I'll follow through on that. This is my brother's house. He told me I can stay here, so I will," she retorted defiantly. "It's not his house, Karen. Regardless of what Michael told you, the legal documents show that the property is mine. Yeah, marital property or whatever, but he has all the power here. He decided this was the best thing to do," she insisted, misunderstanding the situation. "You really can't stop talking, can you? I see why my brother chose another woman," Karen snapped, hoping to hurt me further. "Well, okay. I have nothing more to say. Goodbye." I ended the call, not before hearing Karen's spiteful laughter. If she didn't vacate within the given 4 days, I was fully prepared to take her to court. I had all the legal backing I needed. Unsurprisingly, Karen informed Michael of our conversation, and within an hour, he called furiously, questioning my audacity to send her an eviction notice. Like before, I chose not to respond to his anger. In the next 4 days, 2 significant things happened. First, I had the divorce papers delivered to Michael, and he shockingly decided to contest them. Second, Karen had still not moved out. I followed through with my threat and had a court summons sent to her. Legally, she was considered a squatter. When Karen received the summons, she was visibly shocked to discover that the house was in my name, not her precious brother's. She confronted me, accusing me of tricking her. I did no such thing, I told her firmly. I gave you ample warning and time to leave. I even warned you to move out. The reality of her situation was finally starting to dawn on her, and I was ready to uphold my rights no matter what. Karen refused to heed my warnings, and ultimately she had to face the consequences in court. My lawyer presented a solid case, including the eviction notice and recordings of phone calls, where I repeatedly asked Karen to vacate the premises and she blatantly refused. In my state, squatting is considered a serious offense, and as a result, Karen was charged with a Class A misdemeanor and fined $650. The look of utter defeat and humiliation on her face was a sight I found deeply satisfying after enduring years of her antagonism. After the court proceedings settled, Michael and Karen, still unable to accept their defeat, confronted me at Judy's place where I had been staying. "How could you do that to my little sister?" Michael demanded. "Your little sister has been making my life miserable for years, and I finally put a stop to it in the only way I knew how, a decision you initially agreed with. Yet the moment I stood up for myself, you sided with her," I responded, my frustration evident. "I only did that because she had nowhere else to go after the eviction." "I was doing her a favor," Michael argued. "So the house suddenly became an option because we were separating? If we weren't, would you have sneaked her in?" I countered. Michael stumbled over his words, but I cut him off. "Save it, Michael. I don't want to hear any more. I'll just see you in court. How is the house even in your name? Your brother's name isn't on any of the documents. I have been the one paying off the mortgage and making other repairs meticulously for the past 4 years. No matter how much your brother contested in court, he won't get any ownership of the house. All he'll get is a much lighter wallet," Karen interjected, clearly not understanding the legal footing. "You think I set him up?" "I did nothing of the sort. Your brother believes in being the man of the house, yet he avoided any real responsibilities, preferring instead that I do all the hard work while he reaped the benefits. Thank God that won't be my problem anymore," I retorted, my patience exhausted. With that, I slammed the door in their faces, ending the conversation. In the weeks that followed, Michael, realizing he would not win the house, decided to contest every single possession we shared, down to the most trivial items like our dessert spoons. The battle was petty and exhausting, but I was prepared to fight for my peace and freedom no matter how long it took. I was completely unbothered by Michael's attempts to claim our shared possessions. For every piece of furniture and item he claimed as his, I had the receipts clearly showing who had paid for them. In truth, he hadn't contributed much, so he was only going to get a minimal share. While Michael was preoccupied with this petty squabble, I took action on another front. I sent screenshots of his inappropriate communications with Judy to his company's HR department. Within 2 weeks, Michael was terminated from his job. Surprisingly, Isabella was not. I learned from some of Michael's colleagues, whom I had remained friendly with, that she had argued Michael coerced her into the relationship by threatening her professional standing. Understandably, their relationship did not survive this revelation. It took some time, but eventually, the divorce was finalized, and I was officially free. To celebrate my newfound freedom and the successful resolution of a complex situation, Judy and I enjoyed a long celebration. It felt like a double victory. The last update I received on Michael and Karen was less than glamorous. They ended up living together in a modest apartment, both struggling to find jobs. Their parents were supporting them with a modest allowance, but they were far from pleased with their actions. My former in-laws even reached out to apologize for their children's behavior, a gesture that helped bring some closure to the entire ordeal. Now free, I looked forward to what life had to offer next. The entire experience reinforced a valuable lesson to never forget my worth. It also showed me that I could handle myself in tough situations, a force to be reckoned with. Here's to moving forward, stronger and wiser. Cheers. Hi, I am Sandra and I am 30 years old. I decided to write about an event that took place recently, which I believe has brought a sense of closure for me over such a difficult time in my life after everything had happened with my husband and his family. That was months ago, and the dust of this chapter has settled by now. I am also still coming to terms with the emotional aftermath, and I feel that sharing my journey may only enable me in spirit. Let's take a step back to 3 years ago when I made a major life choice, marrying my boyfriend, Tyler. We had met through mutual friends and enjoyed 3 wonderful years together before tying the knot. Tyler was always the life of the party, fun, attentive, and loving. He came from a well-to-do family and had a lucrative job, which allowed him to shower me with affection and gifts. Our bond was strengthened by our mutual love for travel. As our relationship evolved from casual dating to something more serious, my friends consistently praised him and delighted for us. Tyler's generosity was overwhelming at times. For instance, he gifted me a new laptop when I graduated from college. Despite his kindness, I often felt uneasy about the imbalance in our financial contributions. "Tyler, I'm just a college student," I'd say. "I can't match your spending. Let me try to split the other costs, at least." Tyler would brush off my concerns, insisting on treating me and arguing that it was common among his friends to pamper their partners. As I gradually accepted his gestures, I also sought ways to contribute within my means. Once I landed a well-paying job post-college, I was eager to reciprocate his generosity. We started sharing expenses more equally and even discussed moving in together. "You can move in with me," Tyler proposed one day. "I inherited my house from my grandpa, so no worries about rent, but we should split other expenses to keep things fair." Despite my reservations, Tyler reassured me of his intentions to take care of me, and so began a new chapter in our lives together. Despite our agreement to fairly share the financial responsibilities considering our differing incomes, things were running smoothly until I had the opportunity to meet Tyler's family, who lived quite far from us. With Tyler tied up with work commitments, he couldn't accompany them, so I was left to host his parents and sister by myself. Before their arrival, Tyler had given me a heads up about their judgmental tendencies, but didn't go into details. He simply suggested that I should play along and ignore any potentially hurtful comments. With this in mind, I decided to approach the meeting with optimism. However, any hint of positivity vanished as soon as Tyler's family arrived. Instead of the warm welcome I had hoped for, Tyler's parents and sister showed up visibly annoyed. This stark contrast to my expectations set a tense atmosphere right from the start. As we gathered and conversation ensued, it became clear that they harbored negative opinions about me. "So, you're the woman Tyler has been seeing? I didn't expect to find you in this house. Do you even pay rent?" Martha, Tyler's mother, asked with a tone of disapproval. "No, Martha, I don't pay rent. Tyler mentioned that the house is fully paid for, but we split all other bills evenly," I explained, hoping to clear up any misunderstandings. Martha quickly dismissed my explanation, retorting, Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off him. This is his house, not yours. Remember that for the rest of your life. The conversation became increasingly uncomfortable, especially with his sister Teresa, who seemed more interested in glaring at me than engaging in dialogue. When I tried to include her by asking about her life, she responded with irritation, mentioning her marriage to a wealthy billionaire back home. Despite my efforts to bridge the gap, she simply brushed me off. Throughout their visit, Tyler offered no support and seemed to align himself with his family's sentiments. Gabriel and Martha continued to criticize me, making the entire experience quite challenging. Tyler's family expressed disapproval over my spending habits, particularly my purchases of makeup and skincare products. They felt that indulging in such luxuries was inappropriate, given what they perceived as my insufficient contributions to the household. Their skepticism about my financial dependence on Tyler grew, partly fueled by Tyler's remarks. For example, he would offhandedly comment, "You know, Sandra was a struggling student when we first met," implying that I had relied heavily on him financially, even though this was not entirely accurate. Tyler would recount how he had covered all expenses early in our relationship because my job at the time didn't support what he called my taste for luxury. I was taken aback by these comments and reminded him that we had since adjusted our arrangement to split our bills equally. I explained that I had lived simply both before and during our relationship and that any luxury items I had were gifts from him, gifts I had often cautioned him against due to their extravagance. Yet Tyler justified his lavish spending by claiming his social status required him to present extravagant gifts, revealing that his generosity was more about showing off to his friends than genuine care. Their visit left me with a sour taste, prompting me to confront Tyler about the entire ordeal after they left. Unfortunately, he shrugged it off, suggesting I was overthinking things. "Don't take it to heart, Sandra. They meant well. What they said was not meant to be taken so seriously. Relax, you're overreacting." He dismissed my concerns. Despite my reservations, 5 months later, Tyler proposed, and in a moment of happiness, I accepted. We planned an engagement party and decided to split the expenses evenly. Meanwhile, I was running a small business on the side, which Tyler knew was growing, but he never really inquired about its earnings. To me, it was more of a fulfilling hobby than a significant moneymaker. When it came time to organize our engagement party, I decided it was an occasion to treat myself a bit. Tyler supported this idea, and we managed the expenses together, ensuring an equal contribution from both sides. I even took on the expense of covering plane tickets for my extended family to attend our engagement party. However, as the celebrations unfolded, the earlier criticisms resurfaced. "You shouldn't have splurged so much on this party, Sandra. You're draining Tyler's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll end up with a backyard wedding. I thought you were financially irresponsible, but it's worse than I thought," they criticized. I stood my ground and firmly responded to Martha. The party was extravagant, but we both agreed to it. I paid my share, and it was actually your son's idea to include everyone. Tyler had insisted a lot, and I couldn't say no. He mentioned he didn't mind the expense, but the criticism continued, with Martha accusing me of manipulating Tyler into spending more than he should. Teresa chimed in too, asserting that she knew what kind of person I was, and that I should have been more considerate. Frustrated and needing a break from the tension, I excused myself and sought a moment of peace on the venue's lawn. There, I overheard Teresa and her husband Justin laughing about the situation at my expense. It felt as though my engagement party was falling apart, with Tyler seemingly oblivious to his family's harsh judgments. Most of his extended family assumed I was jobless, painting me as a dependent fiancé. Noticing my distress, my mom, always perceptive and protective, approached me. Aware of the challenges of managing finances as a single parent, she urged me to reconsider the engagement, pointing out the ongoing mean comments from Tyler's family. After the party, I confronted Tyler about the situation. He brushed it off as a joke, expressing his love and stating that financial matters didn't concern him. However, I reiterated my desire to contribute more significantly, especially towards expenses like rent, but he dismissed the suggestion. As we moved forward with wedding planning, the stress intensified. Tyler's parents continued to criticize my choices, accusing me of bankrupting their son. The constant scrutiny and accusations made the engagement period increasingly challenging. I made it clear that everyone, including my mom, was pitching in for the wedding expenses. However, Martha sharply accused me of taking advantage of her son and suggested that we were on a mission to deplete his bank account. Amid these accusations, my in-laws unfairly branded me a gold digger. I addressed Gabriel calmly to alleviate his concerns. "Gabriel, I'm not asking for any financial help. I just want to ensure you understand that we are completely capable of financing the wedding ourselves." Despite my explanations, Teresa didn't hold back her critiques about the cost of my dress and makeup on the wedding day, even though I had previously clarified that those expenses were covered by my mother. The ceremony itself unfolded without a hitch, but at the reception, Martha and Gabriel did not miss any opportunity to criticize my spending habits, accusing me of financially exploiting their son. Despite their harsh words, I chose to remain silent to avoid any conflict that might ruin our special day. A few months later, Tyler celebrated a significant promotion at work, and he was eager to mark the occasion with a grand family dinner. I was excited for him and decided to make the event even more special by covering all the expenses myself. "Tyler, I want this dinner to be something extraordinary. I'm so proud of you, and I want to celebrate your success," I told him enthusiastically. Tyler appreciated my gesture, and I shared with him that my business was flourishing. I had a stable income from my job, and I had recently accessed a trust fund from my paternal grandfather. I meticulously planned the whole event to ensure everything was perfect for the celebration. However, when his family arrived, they were visibly unhappy with the arrangements. Despite receiving positive feedback from other guests, it soon became apparent that they had reservations about the foolishness of the celebration. During the speeches, Martha took the opportunity to stand up. Her voice carried across the room as she began, "I want to thank everyone for gathering here to celebrate my son. He's incredibly hardworking and generous, and truly deserving of this promotion. Unfortunately, it seems his good fortune did not extend to his choice of a partner. It's unfortunate that of all people, he found himself tied to what some might call a gold digger. I only wish he had seen the true nature of his wife earlier, then he wouldn't have to work so hard to support her lavish lifestyle." She continued, her tone tinged with regret. "It's now painfully obvious to everyone here that his wife has been quite extravagant. From the engagement party to tonight's dinner, it seems she has nearly drained his accounts." Feeling the sting of her words, I took a deep breath and steeled myself. Martha added, "Thank goodness we had Sandra sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. At least some of his assets are protected." She sighed, seemingly relieved, expressing that it was a good thing her son had married someone who could at least maintain the image of a trophy wife. Tyler chimed in, agreeing with his mother. "I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore. There's nothing left," he lamented, comparing my behavior unfavorably to what he imagined another's response might be in a similar situation. In shock and frustration at the unfolding scene, I finally spoke up. "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" Tyler's response was cutting. Your lifestyle is quite damaging to my bank account." Feeling hurt, yet determined to clarify the misconceptions, I decided to confront the accusation directly. "Since I'm such a gold digger to you all, let me just show you my bank balance. Perhaps that will clear things up," I declared, revealing my financial independence to everyone present. The room fell into disbelief amidst the heated accusations. Martha pointedly accused, "Did you steal my son's money?" To which Tyler added suspiciously, "She must have taken it from you." Frustrated yet calm, I responded, "I don't need to steal money from your son. This is all from my efforts. Besides, I recently accessed a trust fund left by my grandfather. I had plans to use it to buy a bigger house and surprise Tyler, but given the current circumstances, that seems unlikely now." Despite my attempt to clarify the situation, Tyler, seemingly ignoring the tension, suggested, "We can still buy the house. It'll be a wonderful gift." However, I was firm in my resolve, expressing my refusal to accept such a gift under the current conditions. "This is not happening. Your family has insulted me for too long, and you've never once stood up for me. Instead, you've let these misconceptions about how I'm supposedly using your money spread," I asserted, my frustration evident. Tyler tried to downplay the situation, claiming I was overreacting, but I stood my ground. "No, I am not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been calling me. They were here when you allowed them to insult me during our engagement party." Feeling the cumulative burden of disrespect and humiliation over the years, I reached a breaking point. I could no longer tolerate the toxic environment and sternly told Tyler, "I want a divorce." As he attempted to plead and explain, my mom intervened, advising him to remain silent. "You never defended my daughter all these years. It's time she ends this toxic relationship for good," she declared firmly. We left the party, leaving behind a crowd of shocked attendees whispering among themselves. Despite the dramatic revelation in front of Tyler's extended family, friends, and colleagues, I no longer cared. I was resolute in my decision to leave him and move on from the relationship. My mom's support was unwavering as we exited, marking the end of a painful chapter in my life. After the tumultuous confrontation, I went straight to our shared home, gathered my belongings, and while Tyler persistently tried to reach me, I muted my phone and went to stay with my mother for solace. The next day, I reached out to my cousin, who was a lawyer, to begin drafting the divorce papers. With a prenuptial agreement already in place, the process promised to be straightforward, sparing me the need to share any of my now substantial financial assets with Tyler. However, the situation escalated when Tyler and his family appeared at my mother's doorstep, demanding a conversation. My mother stood firm, instructing them to leave. Meanwhile, Tyler continued his attempts to contact me, his messages oscillating between tearful apologies and unsettling threats. I saved all these communications, preparing to file for a restraining order if necessary. Amid this emotional chaos, my mother's unwavering support gave me strength. Tyler even attempted to confront me at my office, but having informed security in advance, they promptly escorted him out. It was then I decided to leave my well-paying job. My thriving business meant I no longer needed the position, and my aspirations were no longer about accumulating wealth, but seeking a peaceful, dignified life. Thus, I handed in my resignation that very day and began to move forward. Only a week after, I had the divorce papers served to Tyler at his workplace. He appeared at my old office, only to find that I had already resigned. My former colleagues reported his continued attempts to send flowers and gifts to my mother's house, which we consistently returned. The ongoing harassment led me to consider relocating. With my mother's encouragement, I found an ideal house in the next state, providing a sanctuary away from my ex. Currently, as I await the finalization of the divorce paperwork, the judge has already facilitated a smooth proceeding thanks to the solid prenuptial agreement. During the 5 months of our separation, I took the time to collect myself and prepare for a new chapter in my life, free from turmoil and filled with renewed hope. I quickly settled into my new home, taking the significant step of changing my number to avoid the incessant barrage of messages from Tyler and his family. I heard through the grapevine that Tyler's life was unraveling. He blamed his parents for the downfall of our marriage, and professionally, he faced a significant setback. His colleagues began to distance themselves, and his seniors were displeased with the negative publicity in their close-knit community. His parents didn't help matters, spreading infidelity rumors, but thankfully, these baseless accusations failed to gain any traction. In contrast to Tyler's downward spiral, my life began to flourish. I focused on growing my business and relishing my newfound freedom. I started going out more and even dipped my toes back into the dating scene. Tyler's past insecurities made me wary of committing too quickly, but I remained hopeful that in time I would heal and find someone who truly values and cherishes me. While Tyler's actions caused me considerable pain, the strength I gained from overcoming those challenges has propelled me into a brighter future, full of possibilities and self-discovery. I look forward to what lies ahead, confident in my resilience, and more aware of what I seek in relationships and life.